So good evening. I appreciate everybody coming here today. And I want to get started because I want to make sure to honor your time. I want to answer every single possible question that you have. But I know that it's a school night. We want to make sure everybody can get their kids home and to bed and anything else that you need to do. And yes, I'm a stickler about those things. So I do want to say thank you again for being here tonight. I think it's a really important, a very important thing that we're doing in Grand Rapids Public Schools is this third grade reading that is actually state law, but how we're going about implementing it and working it through our system is terrific because it's going to address many of our students who are on our radar as needing help anyway. So it works out perfectly. This brochure right here, I'm not positive if you have one. If you don't and you want to raise your hand, I know Kyle will get one for you. And I don't know, is this going to bother you if I do this? Or is that okay? Okay, yeah, very good. I try to use my teacher voice, but it's hard in the gym, you know? I don't want to yell at you. So this is what we're going to refer to along with the MAP report that is on that white sheet of paper. So if you don't have either of those, we will bring them to you. And for those of you who are just walking in, feel free to get some food. Very excited to be here tonight. I'm Bridget Cheney, and I am the Executive Director of Elementary and K-8s for Grand Rapids Public Schools. Former third grade teacher, fifth grade teacher, and principal. So lived and breathed reading, and very, very happy to present this information to you. And we will go ahead and begin. So if you want to look at this brochure, if you don't mind, I'm not going to go through each and every bullet point, but I want to highlight some things for you. And then along the way, as you have questions, feel free to stop me and pop in at any point in time because I want to be able to, like I say, answer any questions that you have and make sure that we are getting to every possible need that your child or you may have as well. So the first place I go is what do I need to know about Public Act 306 as a parent? It's the first trifold portion of this brochure. And Public Act 306 came down from the state of Michigan to all public schools in the state of Michigan. And it affects the kids who are in first grade right now. Well, it affects all of our kids that are not reading at grade level currently, but the sanctions as far as much of what you hear on the news and things like that about, oh, third grade children being held back or being retained, that does not begin until this year's first graders get in third grade. So we are being very proactive in what we're doing to get kids at grade level right now, knowing that it won't affect any of our students and them being held back until the first graders are in third grade. So we have a couple years lead time for that. So Public Act 306 is the reading law, is what you'll probably most often hear it called, is just third grade reading law is what everybody refers to it as. And what we're doing as a district is we're closely monitoring all children's reading level. And I'll explain how we do that as we go along. And what we're also saying is if your child or a grandchild or niece or nephew or a person that you tutor is not reading at their current grade level right now, we're going to put a plan into place for them so that we can meet them exactly where they are. We can intervene and give them any intervention that they need in the areas that they're struggling, because not all children struggle in the same areas. And just because you're not at grade level does not mean that you are missing the same parts and pieces as your neighbor who may not be at grade level either. Feel free to get some food, don't worry a thing about it. Yes, you're welcome. And so we want to be so individuated with these plans to ensure that every child has the opportunity and the access to get any type of instruction they need to become proficient readers. So that is our aim. And one of the things that the law talks about is how do I come around this as a parent at home or a grandparent or anybody supporting a child? What are some of the things I can do to help at home? So we're going to go through some of those things tonight as well. And one of the biggest things you can do at home, I'll give you the biggest key ever, is read with your child. It doesn't have to be for long periods of time, but just that togetherness that closeness that a child will feel when you're reading with them or to them or they're reading to you builds many times a sense of love for reading because they like that together time with you. And when children love to read, we are 3 steps forward for sure. 3 steps forward. And so another thing I want to talk about is how you have the right, yeah.
This is real quick. So well quiet.
Sorry.
It's okay. Let's try that.
Good.
And then actually let's put on your vest. There, let's try
Good?
that. Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. We're recording so that any parent who happens to miss, we have 4 of these meetings, 1 in each quadrant of the city. If somebody misses, they can watch the viewing of this and get the information. So we wanted to make it available to everybody, regardless of whether you could come out on a Tuesday or a Thursday for the last 2 weeks or not. And that's why you see him up here, is making sure that everyone can hear on the camera. So thanks for doing that, appreciate it. And what I was getting ready to say is you have the right to request any information about your child's reading level at any time. And that's not new, but it's more highlighted with this law. And we want to encourage you to do that because the more you know about your child's reading level, the more you can help at home, and we very much appreciate that. So what I want to dig into right now is how this came about. Why this? Why now? And one of the reasons it came about is Michigan is ranked in the lower part of the 48 states as far as reading proficiency, as far as education goes overall. And we want to be one of the top 10 states educationally in the next 10 years. How do you do that? Reading. Of course, math, science, and social studies equally as important, but reading is your foundation. That's your fundamental. So we knew we had to attack it as a state level. And what better way than to create a law, not for sanctioning so much, but so kids are getting the supports that they need. Because when kids have the support that they need in getting to grade level, it allows everybody to have that focus, right? That same mindset of reading is important. My child needs to be at grade level each step of the way. So it's actually a good thing that it came along. It formalized many things that we were already doing here and added some things into it, which is a good thing. We had interventions already in place as a Grand Rapids public school system. We have screeners in place. What we didn't have always is a formalized, documented plan for what every child got as far as interventions. And this formalizes it for us, which is great, because that way then it goes in the child's records. So if they move from school to school, when they move from grade level to grade level, it's right there for the next teacher. They know right where to pick up, where the last teacher left off. And that is a beautiful thing. You don't need to spend 3 weeks trying to figure out, oh no, where are they at? What types of things work? Are they knowing their letters and sounds? Do they not know their letters and sounds and things like that? So that's a very good thing.
Could I ask one question?
Absolutely.
Now, is this going to be for kids K-8 here in this building or just K-3? Or?
So K-3 are the grade levels that this most impacts because 3rd grade is when they're looking to see if they're proficient or not, they meaning the state of Michigan. But 4th and 5th grade, picking up on some of those very same practices. Okay. Absolutely picking up on some of the same practices. So there is support for 4th and 5th grade. It's not documented the same way as the K through 3 because the law states that we must have education loves acronyms. So it's an IRIP, Individual Reading Improvement Plan. Call it an IRIP for short, and depending upon what their reading level is. So we're going to go into that very next thing, so that's a very good segue that we have. How do we determine why now, and how did we arrive here? So why now is, like I say, the state of Michigan wanting to make sure that we're a top educational state, not just because we compete with other states across the nation, but because our children are important. They're the future of not only our city, but our state and our global economy as well. So making sure that they have the skills that they need, that they can traverse this world in any way that they want to, opportunity for kids. And that's important to us in Grand Rapids Public Schools as well. So we're happy to do it. And then why now? Well, why not? Why not, right? There's no time like the present. So how do we determine which children need this IRIP or 3rd grade reading plan? So how many here have heard of the MAP test? Or NWAI? Good, yay, that's a good thing. So in Grand Rapids Public Schools, our students take the MAP test 3 times a year, September, January, and April to May. It runs into May once in a while. And it's a standardized, well, it's a norm referenced test. And so what that means is it's standard in how they take it. Everybody takes it on the computer. And in K through 2, it's an auditory test for reading. So selections are read to kids, and they determine the answer based upon what was read to them. The answers are also read. 3rd on up, it's a reading test. And not that the K through 2 isn't reading, it's just different. It's more auditory comprehension. Whereas 3rd grade on up, kids must read it for themselves and determine which answer to select. And so while it's the same test, it just looks different at the grade levels. How they take it looks different as far as whether it's read to them or not. And out of that test comes a score. The score is a RIT score, which correlates with a national percentile. So kids across the nation take this test. Not everywhere subscribes to this test, but it is used in all 50 states across the nation in some districts. Many districts use it because it gives you a good idea how your child does compared to peers across the nation. So if I am in 2nd grade, how do I compare to kids in 2nd grade in Florida, Montana, Texas, right? And so when we say normed referenced, that's what we mean. How are they compared to their peers? And that's what the national percentile is. So I'm going to refer real quick to the white sheet of paper. That is a parent MAP report, okay? This is something that you can get 3 times a year because as your child takes the MAP test, when they finish, this is their score, this is their information. Now you'll see on this that we have math and reading. We're going to pay particular attention to the reading tonight. And if you look at the 3 numbers that are national percentile, do you see those there? If I'm not mistaken, I think it is actually 45% is in the middle. Let me look. Oh, Kyle, do you have one? I don't know where Kyle went. Thank you. So if you look at the bottom, which is reading, and then you go over to the right and you see RIT, well, you see FA 17, that means fall of 17. The RIT score here gives you a range of 168 to 174. And then the percentile range, that's what we are going to look at tonight. The percentile range is 36, 44, 52.
And what does RIT stand for?
RIT it's a scale unit. I'm going to mispronounce it. It's a German word, and it's, I believe, pronounced rash.
Okay.
But it's ROESCH.
Okay.
So I'm not good at pronouncing that. I don't know exactly, but.
This score, how is this score determined?
Okay, so when they take a test, the score comes from how many answers they got correct. And as kids are taking the test, it adjusts. So if I'm taking the test and I'm answering very quickly and my answers are correct, it's going to give me harder questions, right? And if I am taking the test and I'm answering incorrect, and they're taking a long time for me to process, read, and answer, hey, come on in, if you want some food, feel free, it's right up front. If it's taking me a while to answer, it's going to adjust lower for me. Because what it wants to see, it meaning the test, what it wants to see is exactly where my instructional level is. Not how many I get right or wrong, but what the content is that I'm continuing to get correct. So the MSTEP, which is proficiency, is how many did you get right or wrong out of how many? And that is our standardized tests. MAP is how many am I getting correct in what area and content, right? So as the questions get harder, if I continue to get them correct, the higher my RIT score, which is higher percentile, okay? So if you look on the percentile, which is all the way to the right, and it gives you the 3 numbers, and in the middle, this one's 44 for fall of 17. 44 is the national percentile for this particular child. That means they are scoring 43% better than their peers who took the test at their same grade level, right? But 100th percentile would be top of the chart, right? So they have a ways to go before they hit that top chart. What we will say, and not only we, but NWEA, which is the maker of the MAP test, will say is when you hit that 60th percentile, that's grade level. It correlates to grade level. So if I scored 60th percentile and I'm a second grader, it means that I'm reading right at second grade level. Okay?
So 60 is the magic number for
60 is the magic number for all grades. Yep. So this child is just below grade level, sitting at 44%. This is a child that we would write an IRIP for. We would look and see what areas the child scored lower in and struggled with, and we're going to write instruction and intervention plans based upon those needs. So what we're doing is we're zoning right in on whatever the needs of that child are so that we can instruct based upon need. Because if I'm doing so well in letters and sounds and phonemic awareness, I don't need an intervention on that. I may need an intervention on comprehension. So as my teacher is building small groups and things for students to do, I'm going to be in the group that either my teacher or someone who's trained, come on in, you can eat. Food's right up front if you want. Where somebody is highly trained and they're going to work with me in a small group, perhaps, to give me the instruction that I need that's going to hone in on that comprehension, okay? So 60 being the magic number, if you will, means I'm on grade level, okay? So this test, like I say, is given September, January, and April, May. And any child that is the 59th percentile and lower, we write a plan for. Parents are involved with that plan. So teacher will meet with parent and talk about, here's the plan that we've devised based upon your child's need. We would like for you to sign it, and here's an at-home reading component plan. That doesn't mean you have to do those things at home, it's suggested. Here are some activities, here are some readings, here's something you can do at home to shore up your child's reading level, okay? Basically saying, please join with us in raising that reading level, okay? On the very back of the flyer are some digital resources. So we will give you things, an at-home reading plan when we give you the IRIP, but then this is also for you to have as well. This works on tablets, phones, laptops, desktops, and it's an easy thing to do perhaps when you're cooking dinner and you can't sit and read with your child, but hey, get online for 10 minutes. Work with this. They're very good sites for building reading skills. And the other thing that it says here, KDL and GRPL, the Kent District Library, Grand Rapids Public Library, their staff has been trained and is happy to help you or anyone else who takes your child to the library with either getting your child online to do something there, to check out books to them that are right at their reading level, or even give you some ideas of things that you can do at home and activities to do at home. So they're partnering with us as well. We're really happy about that. They have tremendous resources, and that's a huge asset to our city. So very happy, yes.
Some of these websites, though, don't you have to have the programmer? Because I got on one site because it was in the paper tonight.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
A couple of the sites were, and I
Right.
looked at them. And it said, are you a teacher, and this kind of thing. Now, I know my great niece brought home, last year she had a program, a reading program, that we could work with her at home.
Sure.
Her name was on it and everything.
Could have been Raz Kids.
It was.
Yeah, Raz
Can you
Kids.
still do something like that?
Absolutely, yes. These are suggestions they're all free. If you're a teacher, sometimes they let you into some more deep types of content, but absolutely, if you have Raz Kids or your school or teacher uses that in the classroom and gives you that information, that's a fantastic site. Wonderful site, yeah, and kids love it.
And if
Kids love it.
the teacher's not doing it, can you still get on it?
You can, yes, it's not just for teachers. You could still subscribe to it. Yeah.
But is there a cost to that if you subscribe to it?
Raz Kids for schools is, it does cost. I don't know about individuals. So you could check, they may have a free version trial, and then you could go from there, so.
You had to join, so I thought it
Right.
might be a cost.
And sometimes when you join, it's simply just putting in information so that they know how to tailor the program. These I know you don't have, it's not a cost to join. Starfall is free, but if you want to unlock some, like I say, deeper levels or more activities, you can pay a nominal fee, $4.99 or something like that, and it gives you more, but there's plenty of things that are free on that site as well. So yeah, that's a really good thing, and good question too. So as we're talking about this 60th percentile, if you see on this report at the bottom left, there's something that says Lexile. See that? Lexile is actually your child's reading level as it pertains to books. So if you go to the library, or even our libraries at the school, they're Lexile leveled. So any book out there has a Lexile level to it. And the larger the level, or higher the level, the number, the harder the book, the more complex it is to read. And the lower, the easier it is to read. So if you have a BR, this one I believe is BR. Yep. BR means beginning reader. So you're going to want to do some easier reading books. Perhaps they're going to read to you, or you're going to use predictable books, right? We went to the farm. We saw a pig. We saw a cow. Those types of texts, just to build skills, and then ramp that up as you go. If there's a number attached to it, any library that you go to, Grand Rapids Public Library, school library, they can give you the types of books that are in that Lexile range. So if I am, if I'm a 1500 Lexile, college level, okay, that's a high end of the scale. It scales backward down. 200 is probably the lowest you'll see. That equates to about a mid-first grade to second grade reader. Okay, because kindergarten, of course, they're going to consider beginning readers because they're just learning sounds and things like that. Not that some kids can't read at kinder, they can. So yeah, that's how you want to go about looking at Lexile levels. Some of the favorite books out there as a third grade teacher was Captain Underpants. Okay, and Captain Underpants is a graphic novel. So you think, oh, that would be so easy. There's lots of pictures and things like that. The Lexile is actually pretty high in that. So it's a really good thing to check. If you go online and just Google Lexile, it'll bring you to a site. You can put in the title of the book, and it'll tell you the Lexile level of the book. It's very cool.
So every kid is getting one of these from their parent-teacher conferences.
Yes.
So every parent can see what the Lexile.
They can, yes, yes. Now, does your child have to read their Lexile level? Absolutely not. They can read things that are a little easier. They can read things that are harder, of course. But we like them to read as much as possible in that Lexile range because they won't be so frustrated that they don't like reading, or it won't be so easy that they're not actually challenged. The other thing, though, is interest. If it's interesting to them, have them read it. 100% about kids loving to learn reading. Right? We want them to read things that are interesting to them because that way we know they'll be engaged and they'll build their skills and won't even realize it. So that's a very good thing as well. So if I have a child, like I say, at the 44th percentile, teacher's going to build a plan, going to engage the parent in that plan, and we're going to move from there until we get to winter to see what the MAP scores are then. If the child scores at 61 percentile, individual reading plan is over with. Not to say the teacher still won't work with them, of course they will, but we don't have to have that individual plan for them with interventions in place. Okay, so as long as they're 60th or lower.
I have a question.
Sure.
When I didn't want to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Well, you see the kindergarten and the first graders, when they take that MAP test, that's read to them?
It is.
And, okay, so is that more of a comprehension test for them? Or, I understand it all has to do with reading.
Sure.
But then, when they reach second grade, then they are reading?
Yeah, so when they hit third grade is when they have to read it themselves. K through 2 is when it's read to them. And lots of the, not always, but some of the questions in kindergarten, first grade are going to be pick the letters that make the sound ch, and then they would pick a C and an H and do that. And so that measures their, like I say, their auditorial skills, but then also if it does read a passage and it says, you know, Bobby ran to the park and the trees were green. What color were the trees? Green, red, yellow, blue, hoping that they pick green. So it gets to sounds, it gets to chunking of words and things like that, but then also, yes, the auditory comprehension. Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm asking
No,
is
it's
that
good.
my granddaughter, she can sit there and read a book, you know, and then I'm thinking, well, like in September, the MAP test, I mean, it was okay, not where it's probably supposed to be.
Sure.
And we're trying to figure out, okay, she's reading here. She knows words that surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said that it's read to them,
Mm-hmm.
that made it, I can understand that now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, I can see where there's the,
Because what we don't want is in kinder through second grade, it's so developmental, we don't want them to not be able to read something and show us what they know, because it does have to do with sounds and things like that. So if they can't sound out a word, but they understand the context behind it, we want to know that, right? Because it shows us where they're at on their skill building level. So yeah, it's a really good thing. Sure, yeah, of course. And something you brought up that I think is extremely important is when kids take the MAP test, if you are a parent at home, please know when those testing periods are so that you can build them up. Because what we don't want ever, and we work on this at school as well, we don't want them to be so worried about their score that they freeze, or that they have anxiety, or that they think, oh, if I fail, then this. This just shows us what you know, so we can better instruct. And that's what we'd say to kids all the time, because it's true. When we know what you know or don't know, we know how to build lessons around that. We can better educate you. Class is more designed to reach your needs rather than teaching here to the middle, right? And hoping some get it and knowing that others need extensions or enrichment. So if you could have that conversation at home as well, is very, very helpful. Yes?
I love this idea and I love this program.
Sure.
My parents, grandparents have all been teachers, and
Yep.
I honestly have to go into too much by leave, but No Child Left Behind kind of mess things up really bad, so I like this idea. However,
Yep.
my children, on purpose, I'm sending them to a bilingual immersion school.
Sure.
They go to Southwest Community.
Mm-hmm.
They do not start transitioning back to English until 3rd grade to 4th.
Right.
So my daughter, who spoke no Spanish, is almost fluent in 2nd grade.
Mm-hmm.
However, because of their program, this is not going to work, because by the time they hit the 3rd grade, they're fluent reading in Spanish.
Correct.
So if this program, if they go in and test at it, what it's going to do is my children who are in kindergarten, the teachers the model doesn't work for them because they're not going to be able to immerse them in Spanish just to meet this 3rd grade level thing. Is there going to be some kind of a situation set up for specific schools like this where it doesn't have to be English?
So we have had that conversation because, as I said before, we've had this is the 3rd out of 4 parent meetings, and that has come up at each one. And actually, we were at Cesar Chavez last week, Thursday, and that's a transitional. So there are some kids or some classrooms that are taught in English and others in Spanish, and they transition kids through the Spanish language as well. And so with Southwest Community Campus and that K through 2, especially like you say, because that's when they're working on the Spanish, we have had many conversations about just that. How is the MAP test applicable to them if they're learning in Spanish? Same thing with our second language learners, or ELs, as sometimes we term them here in the educational setting. And that conversation is ongoing. I wish I had a perfect answer for you. I don't yet, because this law just adopted just this past year and being implemented and rolled out throughout the state this school year we haven't quite wrapped our arms around it yet. So I'll say to you, you are correct in what you're bringing up, and we don't have a quick fix for it. We want a right fix. So we are working with NWEA on how best to assess the children, but then also what that means, right? What does that assessment mean? How do we really know if the kids can read at grade level or not? So your point is very valid, and like I say, I wish I had a quick answer for you, but I don't. Just know that the conversations are ongoing, and continue until we have the right answer for you. Because that's what, when kids come out of Southwest Community Campus, the hope is, and much of the time happens, is they're bilingual and biliterate, right? And that's why you selected the program you did. It's important for your child to not only be able to speak the language, but read and write the language as well. Yeah.
For so many of my friends,
Mm-hmm.
their kids are 8th grade out, unbelievably
Yes.
bilingual, and they catch things, and just their
Mm-hmm.
ability to catch things is incredible. That's why we send my kids there.
Sure.
I don't want that to be taken away from them.
Yes, and so Kyle had a couple, or has some business cards of mine, so what I'd love to do is keep you updated on that. Not that I wouldn't anybody else here as well, and we'll keep anybody updated on what you want, but since it's particular to your child, making sure that you have those answers as we come across the solution for that. Okay, because it is important, and Mr. De La Brera, who is the principal now this year, I know is right on top of that as well. I've seen a couple emails come through from him addressing that very same thing. So he's very much advocating for that as well. Yep, so good question. Another thing I want to talk about though is, so while we test 3 times a year for the MAP test, the other thing that we do is we progress monitor. That's something that the law says, but it's also something we've done here in Grand Rapids Public Schools for many, many years. And that is in between the testing cycles, how do we know that kids are progressing? How do we know that what we're doing is actually helping and moving them along without waiting until January to find out? So we have 2 different things that we use. Some of our elementary schools use Dibbles Deep. The rest of the schools use Fontes and Pinnell. And what that is a side-by-side assessment where the teacher sits with the child and has them read to them so that the child can articulate whatever book it is, work through whatever text is at their level, building, so the teacher can see, okay, are they able to chunk the words? Are they able to decode the words? And then ask a few comprehension questions at the end. Okay, so now that they've read this and this is their instructional level, do they understand what they're reading? And that one-on-one assessment is wonderful because it gives the teacher a really good insight as to what every single child needs. And it's much more comforting for the child as well. It's not on the computer, it's not whole group, it's not small group, it is one-on-one assessing. So that happens in between those 3 MAP cycles as well. So that's a really great thing. And then what it does is it helps inform us, like I say, what types of interventions in instruction. We want to use this data so that every single lesson in every single classroom is so applicable to the children that they're teaching, things just skyrocket. And it works, it really does work. Because then children are learning right at their exact level, which is much more comfortable for them, but also challenges them in the right way too, because we don't ever want our kids to be bored, for sure. One other thing I want to challenge you to do at home is when you're reading with your child or grandchild or special friend, if you could ask them any 5 W questions, and this goes for itty bitties all the way up. Who, what, when, where, why. And it sounds really simple. If I'm reading a text and I say, okay, where is that taking place? Well, it's taking place at the park. But I want you to take a step further and say, how did you know that? Because that's when we start to get to the synthesizing or that metacognition, right? And that's where they have to start putting together context clues, picture clues, things that I know from my environment, and it allows for us to get a little deeper with them. It's not just about where is it, but how did you know that? Because when we go to take our standardized test, which is the MSTEP, those are types of things that they ask. What evidence can you provide to know that your answer is correct? How did you know that? And so it gets to that deeper thinking. So if you can ask those follow-up questions, that's terrific as well.
How long are these MAP tests? Like how many minutes?
Good question. It depends upon the child's score, how they're scoring along the way. So if I'm clicking very fast, incorrect, 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 it may be 12 minutes. Because what it's going to say is, oh, This is not appropriate for the child at all, right? They're getting many answers incorrect in a row. We've scaled back, and we don't have anywhere to go as far as scaling back. Or it could take them upwards of 30, 40 minutes, depending upon what answers they're getting correct and the levels that they get to. So what we've done is broken out our testing cycles. We never want a child to sit for an hour to take a test, even 45 minutes, right? So for the itty bitty youngers, K through 2 typically is a 20-minute testing cycle. We can stop it right at that 20-minute mark, take a break. Even if it's the next day, they can rejoin that test. So 20 minutes for the younger ones, and then usually a 30 to 40-minute testing cycle for the older ones because they can sit a little longer, take a break, come back and rejoin that test again. Because what we know is, even we as adults, you know, I've been talking for 40 minutes now and people are like, okay, hurry up, let's go, right? And so it's hard to sit for that long, especially our youngsters. So we wanted to do it in increments so that not only we get the best score, and by best score, I mean showing us exactly what they know, not just, oh, I tried my hardest for about 15 minutes and then I got bored with it, right? Something like that. So it just depends upon the child, though. A test may take them 45 minutes, and then, like I say, we've chunked it out. It might take them 25 and they don't need to come back again, just depending upon how they answer the questions and what question levels they get to. Okay, yes?
You said the test, the time frame goes up to 30 or 40 minutes. Which grade is that?
It just depends upon, if I have a second grade who is scoring in the 80th percentile, which is probably more like a beginning fourth grader, it's going to be longer, even though they're in second grade. If I have a child who's in second grade and they're scoring at the 15th percentile, it's going to be much shorter because they're going to have the scaled down questions. So it's really adjusting to what they know and how well they can answer. Yeah, so.
So you said if 60% means that's your grade level. 80%
Yep.
you mentioned then would be like 2 grade level?
It would be above grade level. There's not a fixed, the RIT score is more an indicator of which grade level, even though they correlate to one another. So if I have a 200 RIT score, which is probably going to get me about in the 85th percentile, it's about a grade and a half above second grade. So because the RIT scores go up as the grade levels go up, but the percentiles are always 0 to 100. Okay, if that makes sense. It's I know. As you get a little deeper into it, it gets a little more complex, right? That's why it's so much easier to look at the percentile and know. If somebody's in the 80th percentile, they're probably about a grade level ahead, maybe a grade and a half. If they're in the 99th percentile, it could be 2 to 3. Yeah.
How long has Grand Rapids Public given this MAP score to kids?
Oh, the MAP test, goodness. 8, 9 years, maybe even 10. This might be the 10th year, so yeah.
The MSTEP is new, fairly new though.
So good, yes. The MSTEP is, we are in our 3rd year now, 4th year now. I have to think back to when I was a principal because we were giving it when I was a principal and I've been out for 3 years. So 4th year. This will be the 4th year of MSTEP. Yep, I'm looking at Kyle too. Tell me if I'm right, Kyle. Because they all roll together after a while, you know, and I'm not that old, but they do. So I say I'm not that old. Anyway, so the MEAP test used to be what state of Michigan children took, and now the MSTEP is what we take, 4th year now. And we take it in the spring. It's taken 3rd through 11th grade. And in 3rd grade, it's reading and math. In 4th grade, it's reading, math, social studies. 5th grade, science, reading, math, science. 5th grade is reading, math, social studies. And then 6th grade's reading and math. 7th grade follows 4th grade. And 8th grade follows 5th grade. So 4th and 7th are science. 5th and 8th are social studies, and reading and math is for everybody. Okay, and so the MSTEP tells you grade level. If you hit a certain score on the MSTEP, it tells you, yes, you've made it, your grade level in either reading, math, science, or social studies. If you don't hit that, you are not proficient. That's the terms that they use, proficient or not proficient, or partially proficient. Proficiency comes from answering enough questions correct. The test doesn't adjust. It is simply a standardized test that says, out of so many, if you get this, we're going to say that you know your grade level content. If you don't, we're going to say you don't know it. And that's where the retention comes in, the third grade retention.
Did you say when they start taking the MSTEP? What grade?
Yes, third grade.
Third.
End of third grade.
Okay.
In the spring. Yep. And so what happens is, if kids, because this is the big worry for parents of first graders that are going to be affected by this law is, oh no, if they don't score proficient on the MSTEP, my child's going to have to be held back or retained. That's the recommendation of the state of Michigan. However, if you look in your pamphlet, it tells you some other things at the very bottom of the middle, where it says they will not be promoted to fourth grade unless. So yes, MSTEP is the first indicator. If they're not proficient, the state of Michigan is saying, you know, they probably need another year of third grade. They can't quite read at grade level. Let's give them another year. But through lots and lots of lobbying from school districts, there's some provisions in there, or some accommodations. Some kids do not test well, and we just know that. So if they don't test well, we can look at a portfolio of work that'll tell us, yes, they can do grade level work. We can look at a different assessment. That could be one of the MAP tests that we're talking about here, or one of the screeners that we were talking about that's the side-by-side the teacher. Okay, and if they can do that at grade level, that might be a reason to move them into fourth grade. And then the other thing is if they're less than 1 year behind on the MSTEP. So let's say I am so close to proficient. For third grade, 1,300 is the number for proficiency. Let's say I got a 1,250. That's so close to it, we can say we want a provision for you or an accommodation, we want to move you to fourth grade because you just barely missed it. You're almost there. And we don't think another year of third grade is going to be what's best for you, because it's not our intent to hold kids back or retain them. We know the research behind it, and so did the lawmakers. However, we also knew that if kids can't read by third grade, the likeliness of them catching up is not very high, and that's troubling. It's troubling because we don't want kids graduating from high school who are not reading at high school level for college and career ready, because that's our aim. They can get into any institution they want is our hope. They can get any job they want, trade school they want, and so we need them reading at grade level. Okay, so the MSTEP is the indicator whether somebody is going to be recommended for retention or not. And like I say, if they're recommended for retention, there are some other things that come into play if perhaps they're not a good test taker, or perhaps they're just so close, or perhaps they just need that extra tiny little bit amount of time knowing that they'll go to summer school before fourth grade, something like that. So yeah. What other questions do you have? I'm talking way too much. It's so quiet. So, you know, it truly, we think about these sanctions or laws as punishment, but you're right, we're really not looking at it that way. We're looking at it as, hey, this is a huge opportunity for us to meet the kids' needs, and also to have kids have that extra attention where they need it.
The only help you could get was you'd have to take the child out of school, you'd have to take them all the way downtown or across town, you know, disrupt their classroom, and then they felt terrible because I'm the only one, you know.
Right?
But it worked.
It did work, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So we would love to do that here in school, and that's the aim of this, is how do we make sure to provide those same services and types of interventions and skills and classes that we need to right here in our school building, so that their educational environment is not disrupted, so that they are so well adjusted and know that, you know, their peers aren't looking at them like, why do you leave every Tuesday at 2, or whatever the case may be, right? So it is important.
Here's a quick question to the
Sure.
teachers, like at the Montessori schools that have first, second, and third grade in one class.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they're implementing all this,
They are. Mm-hmm.
but how can they even keep track when, I mean, like you said, they'll sit and they'll individualize
Right.
They've got the different grades. Seems like so much.
It is a lot, but here's the interesting thing. If you look at MSTEP scores for any one of our, let's say, and I always pick second grade just because it's so close to third grade and we're talking about third grade here, or you can pick a third grade classroom even. If you pick any one of those classrooms, they have kids from every level as well, first, second, third grade, is what the MAP test will tell us. So while they're not first graders, their skill level is at a first grade level. So it's interesting to think about it that way, is we have a very wide variety of grade levels, if you will, meaning instructional grade levels, within one grade level classroom. Even though they're the same age, we have kids who are at first grade level, kids who are at fifth grade level. So your point is well taken as far as the Montessori's having first, second, and third grade, but lots of our straight classrooms have that as well. It's just they're the same age. They happen to be at different instructional levels. So you're right, and that's exactly why this is coming about. We have to make sure that we're individuating instruction. We have to make sure that we're meeting every single learner exactly where they are when they walk through the door. Because I may be a child who's a grade level behind, or I may be a child who is a grade level ahead, even though I'm in third grade. I should still be able to get that second grade work if I need it. I should still be able to get that fourth grade work if I need it, right? Because I don't want to be stifled and not able to be challenged just because I'm ahead of the game, or by the same token, I don't want to be dismissed because I'm not quite at grade level yet either. So that's the key. That's the key to education anymore, is trying to hit every single level. It's almost like that one-room schoolhouse mentality, right? Yeah, but having the same age group. So yeah.
And they range a little bit.
Right, yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Yep, they do. In the Montessori, yes. Yep, in our straight classrooms. Yeah, not as much, so, yeah.
Do you have a reading program? I mean, what is the reading program?
Okay.
Here at Aberdeen? Or
Yes.
Grand Rapids?
So Reading Street is a basal reader. Basal reader meaning that there's a text that every child gets, right? An anthology with several stories in it that is written at whatever grade level you're teaching. And then there are leveled resources that go with each story, at grade level, below grade level, and above grade level. So
There are books at all levels?
yes, little smaller books that go with Reading Street. Yeah, Reading Street. And when you hear me say basal, it's just simply that it's a program, which means every child has an anthology at that grade level that they read from. Now, do our teachers take stories, like I say, that are at grade level, below grade level, and above grade level? Yep, they sure do, because we know that our kids are at different levels in the classroom, and so they need to read.
Teachers group those kids then according to those levels?
Many times they're grouped, yes.
Okay, I have another question
Sure.
about, you said that the individualized testing.
Yeah.
It seems like, who does the testing? Does that teacher test every one of the kids? And I don't know.
And when is their time?
Time.
Yes. So that was one of the things that we talked about is, oh no, how do we do all this testing, right? Well, with the MAP test, because they're shorter increments of time, that's a teacher that's right in there with them. The literacy para perhaps is with them as well. Usually not, there's usually 2 adults in the room when the kids are taking the test. But then when we're talking about the side-by-side testing, either the teacher will have a sub in the classroom for that one day and work through each child, or while the kids are in their centers and they're working on individual things, independent things, she'll work with a group and perhaps test 3 kids one day, and then the next day she tests the next 3, while the others are working on their independent tasks. So it could go either of those ways. So, but it's time consuming, but it gives us such good information. Yeah. Anything else? I don't want to hold you here, but I don't want to send people on their way if they have more questions. I'm happy to stay after. Kyle, did you have those cards? So, okay, there are cards on the back table. If you leave here and think, oh, I wish I would have asked that, or oh, my friend has, or oh, I have an individual question that I didn't want to share in the whole entire group, feel free to call, to email me. I'm in elementary buildings all the time. So I am, like I say, elementary K-8s they're my things. So I'm in each one of the schools, and I so very much appreciate you coming out tonight. We have another one at Harrison on Thursday, and same brochure, same map, paper, but oftentimes different questions come about. So if you feel like, hey, I want to get a little more information, feel free to come. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we did is we had one on the southwest, one on the southeast, one on the northeast, and one on the northwest, and said, anybody, come to anyone you want, or come to all of them if you want, because like I say, the questions have been different in each one, but very good questions at every one. So yeah. And Catherine, thanks for being here as well. So Grand Rapids Public Schools school board member. So not to put you right out there, but
I have a granddaughter.
And she does have a granddaughter that goes to Aberdeen, of course, but I want to say that because we're very, very well supported by our school board as well, and the district personnel, yes.
We're taping this, and where can it be found?
Pardon me?
Can this be found online?
Yes, so where are we going to put this? YouTube? GRPS YouTube. YouTube, yep, and we'll write it down for you if you'd like. Good, I didn't even know the answer to that, good job. I hadn't heard that part yet. But thank you for being here. Hopefully the dinner was good, now you don't have to cook, that's a great thing. And if I see you on Thursday, fantastic, and if not, feel free, like I say, to email or call. Thanks a lot.